Alright, so I was originally going to do a video on women. I saw some videos, I wrote some notes. I saw some videos on um, women talking about why did other women throughout the past and up until recent, well, still really, it's still going on. Why did these women fight for women's rights? And because they're saying that it has prevented them from being able to stay home and be stay-at-home wives. So I was looking at this. I was looking through the internet doing some research, and I found this article that says it's titled How Feminism Has Been Bad for Women," and it's by a guy by the name of it's all the way at the bottom here. Scroll down. It's by a guy by the name of Nick Peters. He signs it "In Christ." And I like how I put in parentheses, "and I affirm the virgin birth." Um, there's actually a couple things in here he says that I don't agree with, but uh, there's some valuable stuff in here. It starts off, this is, I guess, about a post that he made online. Is modern feminism a good thing? And he says, let's plunge into the deeper waters and find out. This is from, as a matter of fact, speaking of deeper waters, this is from deeperwatersapologetics.com. And you can see here he goes on to talk about, I think his post was, yeah, this is his post right here. Modern feminism has done more harm to women than so-called patriarchy could ever dream of doing. And then right here he goes on to say, right here, this is what I put on my wall on Facebook Saturday night. Now I don't know how long ago this was. Someone did post wanting to know more, and it was late, and I figured there's a lot here, why not write a post on it Monday? So having said that, let's go through and see how I think this has been a bad thing. So I was reading through his writing here, his post or his article, and I made some notes on things that I thought were important. There's a chunk of the article in the middle that I'm not even going to bother with, but so the quote at the beginning is, as I read, modern feminism has done more to harm women, etc., etc., than patriarchy. One of the things that he brings up in the article is videos of women in the gym. This is down here somewhere. But he brings up articles about, or points about women in the gym and how, they complain that, these men are staring at them and acting creepy and whatnot. And it's like, what's interesting about that though is, some of these same women have OnlyFans accounts, right? Not all of them, obviously, but and these women in the gyms, they'll complain that they've been traumatized. But yeah, they have a lot of them have OnlyFans accounts, and a lot of them feed off the attention. Um, Another note I made that this article, and I'll leave the link below the video so you guys can read it for yourselves. I don't want to go through and read his whole article. Um, I just don't think that's appropriate. But uh, it's impossible for men and women. He talks about the equality of men and women. I'll read some of it here. He says, let's be clear. What I mean by modern feminism is an attitude that is often anti-male or thinks that men and women are absolutely equal in everything, save perhaps biological differences. I'm not saying anything about women having the right to vote or have a career outside of the house or being able to have higher education. Um, and then he talks about the first way that modern feminism has helped women suffer under the transgender movement, and he talks a little bit about that. Um, and I agree with him. You cannot eliminate biological differences, no matter what you do, what you change, what you cut off, what pills you take, whatever. Um, Biologically, men, generally speaking, are stronger than women. There's always exceptions to every rule, but that is the general point. Um, he talks about some generalities, do allow for exceptions, but the fact that they are the exceptions demonstrates the point. Um, then he goes on to talk about how not only are men winning women's competitions, because we all know what's going on with that. Men are competing against women. Now they're even winning beauty pageants and other such titles. This is pushing women out of the rightful positions that they should have. They should have. I'm also not saying that modern feminists intended for this to happen, but many of our actions do result in unintended consequences, and that is absolutely true. He goes on to say, let's also be clear at something. When we say men and women are different, it does not follow from this that one is superior to the other. And that's true. Like, one's not superior to the other. If you look at how we were created, we were each, men and women were each created for a role, right? So if you scroll down through this, as I read it, there was some points that I wanted to bring up. So I'll just go from my notes instead of reading his article. So there's about the women in the gym, okay, and having OnlyFans accounts, be it complaining about men staring at them. It's impossible for men and women to be truly equal. There are biological differences between us. I mean, that's just, and thank God for that, right? Another one of my notes here says women have suffered due to the fact that there are men competing in women's sports. We just discussed that, right? We just briefly touched on that. Like, I have, two daughters, and would I want my girls having to compete against men? Against No. And I'm not, and saying biological men, it's like, no, you're either a man or you're not, right? Um, oh, there's a paragraph that I wanted to read to you guys. If you want to try to, it starts with, if you want to try to eliminate all differences. Where is that paragraph at? I really wanted to read that to you guys. Where did it go? It's here somewhere. I think that's not right. Yeah, if you want to try to eliminate all differences between men and women, where is that at? It's down here somewhere. I thought that's the end of it. Wait, where'd it go? Did I skip it? Maybe I missed it. Well, that's weird. I'm going to pause the recording and I'll get back with you guys. Hold on. Okay, here it is. If you want to try to eliminate all differences between men and women, one idea that can easily come about is that men and women are practically interchangeable. Then what happens is the men undergo an operation, claim to be a woman, and then compete in women's sports, and lo and behold, they win. This is because generally men are stronger and more capable than women in these areas due to their body's development versus how a woman's body develops. Now I actually scrolled away from that paragraph. I was actually had it up on the screen earlier. But I think that's a very important thing for people to understand. Another thing some of the things I wanted to go over is, in this article, these are things, just thoughts that popped up as I was reading this article. So there was many of our actions and decisions have unintended and undesired consequences. And that applies to all of life, right? In pretty much any area of life, the decisions that we make. Um, and something that struck me about God, right, is that because we have twisted and abandoned what God wanted, all of these things are happening to our society and our world. Everything's falling apart, right? Um, because there is a battle against everything God wanted, but that's for a whole different video. Telling women that, so one thing our society has done, and this has been talked about in a lot of the, endless MGTOW videos and this, that, and the other, right, is that telling women a career is most important. Um, so they tell the women, your career is most important. You go do that. You forget about having a family. One thing I've noticed in my life is that all of the young women are talking about, um, my class is this and my class is that. All of the women in their late teens and 20s, that's all they talk about is their classes. They've got all the women focused on going to college and not even thinking about, oh, do I want to be a housewife one day? Would I maybe want to be a mother and a stay-at-home mom, or even just a mother and work, right? I mean, it's they've got them all focused on their careers, or building a career. And who benefits from that is the colleges and universities that make money off of them going to school, and the corporations. Um, because the corporations, the more labor you have in the market, the less you have to pay each individual, right? Because there's less competition, um, or less. What I'm trying to say is employers don't have to compete with each other as much, uh, because there's plentiful people out there looking for jobs, right? Once you get the men and the women in the workforce, but that's a whole other video as well. So, but also. Uh, a lot of this is also helping to destroy the family, right? Again, like I mentioned, um, most women, not all women, but most women eventually will want to have a baby, at least one. And I've seen that with just about every woman I've ever known. Um, that eventually, I think I've only ever known, I want to say maybe a couple women in my life that have, um, reached older age, like, 40s, 50s, and have said, I never wanted to have kids, and I still don't, and I'm glad I didn't. And I've only ran into like maybe two women like that ever, maybe three maximum. But uh, and one thing our society does is it tends to demonize or discredit or look down upon stay-at-home moms or women that want to be stay-at-home moms, right? Uh, and the destruction of the family, um, also benefits corporations. Like I said, because there's more labor, you don't have to pay as high wages, because there's more people in the labor pool competing with each other, and more taxable income, because now you've got both men and women. You got both halves of the population in the workforce. And then it leaves children exposed to the state, whatever is in the curriculum at the schools or whatever. The kids are being raised by the state. They're not being raised by, one or both of the parents. And so a lot of women are complaining that they can't find a good man to settle down with, because they missed the opportunity to, settle down with a good man, because when they were of that age, right, they just were focused on college and career. And meanwhile, the women that wanted to get married and uh, have a family, they did that when they were young, right? So, and then those men, uh, anyway, those men chose those women, and now they're like, oh, I'm older and I can't find a good man. Well, that's because they're all taken. Um, so another big issue too is no fault divorce has made it so that men don't want to get married because they risk losing everything, and then on top of it, they have to pay alimony and child support. Um, And so they don't want to walk onto that plantation to take that chance, right? It's like, well, why should I get married if, you know, the person that I get married to is not only incentivized to leave and break that contract, but I'm going to have to pay, right? I'll be the one paying. So not only do they lose, it goes both ways. I mean, men can screw up a marriage, women can, but it doesn't matter who screws it up, right? With no fault divorce, nobody needs a legitimate reason. And with most of the divorces being filed by women because they're incentivized to do so, well, there you go. It's, you know, um, and it's also it's hurting women because men, like I said, men don't want to get married because of that. It's not the only reason, but that's one of the big reasons why men don't want to get married anymore. Um, One of the things this guy said in this article, though, is that the man is the beneficiary of no fault divorce. No, no, I don't know. Um, and so, um, and for people out there that are Christians, one of the things that I came across that actually was listening to the other night while I was researching all the information for this video that I wanted to mention, and I was listening to a video in the background. Um, it was a Todd White video, and he said, "You can only manifest the God you know. You cannot manifest the God you don't know." And I was like, "Wow, you know, that is also applicable to what's going on here. If you're not living your life for what God and Christ wanted us to do and fulfill our purposes as daughters of God and as sons of God, this is what happens. All of this stuff here, um, everything gets twisted and misdirected and broken and destroyed, basically smashed, right? Because we're living for the ways of the world. We're not living for um, we're not living for uh, things that really truly matter, right? We're living for materialism, status, me, right? Uh, and so one of the things I wanted to bring up as well is when women shame men for being men. So, like for example, if they shame a man for looking at her or whatever because he's attracted to her, uh, they need to be careful because they could be attempting to exterminate the very thing in men that drives them to strive to be their best for a woman, to care for you and protect you. Right? There's an instinct there for men that when they see a woman they're attracted to, that's a big part of what makes a man want to care for a woman and protect her, right? It brings out that natural, some people would call it divine masculinity or whatever, but it brings that out. And in wanting to provide, protect, love, nurture, that brings that out in men when they see a woman that they're drawn to, you know. Um, Now, of course, yeah, it can be there's guys out there that are creepy about it and stuff, sure. But generally speaking, that's men are that comes out in men when they see a woman they like, and it's not always just about the woman's looks. Um, so I want to read. Men have a desire to care for women and protect them, and I wanted to read this last paragraph of the article. Um, I think it's really important for you guys here. It says, let me scroll all the way down. My mouse has been acting weird lately, so it's like bounces around sometimes when I try to scroll. Actually, it's the last couple paragraphs. So it goes a little something like this. By the way, he says, that means also good guys will. He's talking about um, Well, let me back up. He's also talking about a little bit about what I was just talking about. And also he says, however, because of these videos coming out, what are men less likely to do? Ask out women? After all, you can get a sexual harassment lawsuit headed your way if a woman has a phone at the gym. A man will stay away. He might stay away, period, just to avoid getting in any trouble. And the last two paragraphs here I think are very important. He says, by the way, that means also good guys will stay away. Those good guys that women ask where they are, they're the ones that don't want to be ruined for the crime of being attracted to women, right? This isn't just me saying this, he writes. I see plenty of women saying the same as well. Last paragraph here, he says, women can often complain about what they call patriarchy, but they are doing the worst damage to themselves. They don't need the patriarchy to ruin women. They have met the enemy, and it is them. And so I think in modern society, we're seeing, particularly today in recent times, we're seeing this play out where this whole thing with patriarchy and all that has been taken so far that it's actually become extremely destructive and counterproductive. And we've seen the effects for decades that it's had on families and marriage and children and so on. All the stats are out there. All the information is out there if you want to look it up. But again, I like that last part where he says, in Christ, he signs it, in Christ, Nick Peters, and in parentheses, and I affirm the virgin birth. That was cool. So anyway, this has been Media Happening Now, and this is Todd. And I thought you guys would enjoy this. It's just kind of, not that it's a fun subject, but I thought it was something insightful to talk about. So, and it's something different than everything that's going on right now, right? Like, as everybody's talking about, all the recent events, people trying to use high velocity hole punchers to take out other people and stuff like that. So I thought I'd talk about something a little different since everybody's talking about all the mainstream stuff right now. So anyway, you guys have a good evening, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye for now.